Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Jack Wang, a college financial aid advisor at Innovative Advisory Group. Jack is an expert in college financial aid, helping families navigate the complexities of saving and paying for college. He has shared his expertise through speaking engagements and writing for organizations like the Massachusetts Society of Enrolled Agents, the Massachusetts chapter of the Financial Planning Association, and the Boston Bar Association. Jack is also the host of the upcoming Smart College Buyer podcast, where he'll dive even deeper into these crucial topics. Now, Jack and I first met in person at last year's FinCon conference in New Orleans, where we quickly developed a friendship. One of the highlights was actually going on a ghost and vampire walking tour of the French Quarter together with some other conference attendees. Since then, I've really enjoyed following Jack's insightful posts on LinkedIn and learning from his unique perspectives when it comes to financial aid and education planning. In today's episode, Jack shares how he niched so specifically into college financial aid and student loan management, and he's offering valuable insights on how niching into such a focused area can actually transform your practice. We're also exploring how his marketing strategies have evolved pretty significantly over time, especially with the impact of COVID-19. Like many advisors and other service providers, Jack was pretty worried at first how the pandemic would impact his business, even fearing that he might end up as a toilet scrubber to feed his family. However, Jack's marketing pivots during and post-pandemic ultimately grew his business to the point where new prospects have to wait several weeks just to get on his calendar and speak with him today. Jack's approach to leveraging collaborations and maintaining a sharp focus on his expertise is truly inspiring. So whether you're considering niching down in your practice or you're looking for more innovative marketing strategies, this episode is packed with inspiration and practical tips from Jack. Without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome to this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. I am so excited to talk with Jack today. Thank you for being here, Jack. How are you?
Hillary, thank you so much. It's great to see you, and thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I am too. You and I were able to connect in person at last year's FinCon, which was really, really fun. And I actually think we went on so last year's FinCon was in New Orleans, and we took a ghost and vampire walking tour through the French Quarter together, which was really fun.
That's correct. There's a whole backstory to that doesn't need to be on the podcast. But yes, it was a lot of fun. And when you have a conference in New Orleans, you can't help but have a good time. And learn something too, right? Sure.
Agreed. We learned so much, and we also had a really great time. So I'm excited to chat with you today. I would love if you could start by telling our listeners a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do within the financial services realm.
Yeah. So I'm actually, by license, I'm a financial advisor or IAR. So I'm affiliated with the Registered Investment Advisor. But really, I focus my entire practice on college financial aid, helping families figure out how to pay for college, and then on the back end, managing student loans. So even though by license, I am like many of the others in your audience, I have really leaned into this niche, and I'm definitely the guy that's an inch wide by a mile deep. I mean, I can talk about the nuances of financial aid and how it differs from tax code and all that stuff, and and how I help families. But I've really carved out this niche, or I shouldn't say carved out. I mean, this niche existed, but really dove into it much more than the average advisor, much more than the average person. I suppose you could say that I'm I'm not very exciting at cocktail parties because I really nerd out on this stuff. And it can either really attract people or drive them away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that, but I
Yeah,
love
and
it.
and I would love to dive into this idea of your niche a little bit deeper. Um, Before we hit the record button, you were telling me a little bit exactly about, I mean, with this really specific niche, you also have a really specific ideal client. Can you describe who that client is that comes to you that you feel like you are really good at helping?
Yeah. So my ideal, and by the way, I should mention before I get into the ideal client. So how I originally started into this, much like how a lot of people get into whatever profession or niche or whatever it is that they do, is through personal experience. So years ago, when my kids were younger, I was getting divorced. And so, as part of that, the figuring out the divorce settlement at the time was we were trying to put in a provision regarding college.
Mm.
Coincidentally, I was playing on a men's baseball team. Our starting shortstop was a financial aid officer for a major nationally known institution. He and I today are still friends. We talk often, and he's a financial aid consultant now, but consulting for the colleges. Well, so in between innings, right, I would pepper him literally with just questions. Hey, how does this work out? Because I was mostly looking to find out for myself,
Mm.
and I couldn't believe how complicated it was and how confusing it was. So I thought, well, if I need to know, other people really need to know. But that's really started my journey down the niche. Was I need to know for myself.
Mm.
But as far as the ideal client, so I can tell you. So let me start with who does not come to me. Okay. So families who are very low income, or they're likely just, maybe send their kid to community college or commute to the local public university down the street or something like that. Those people aren't coming to me. I'm not saying that they don't need the help. They could probably still use the help, but they're not generally going to hire someone like me because they
Mhm.
don't feel like they either have the money to pay me, or they've solved the college cost problem a little different way.
Mm.
At the opposite end of the spectrum, if you are rich enough to bribe a college administrator or a college coach to get your kid into college, you're also not talking to me.
Right.
Okay. I won't really comment on the legality of that. I mean, that those folks might make great advisory clients, but they're not talking to me.
Right.
Okay.
You could probably help them.
I could probably help them, visit them in jail, bring them some packs of cigarettes or something. I don't know, whatever the going thing is these days. Um, but but in between that, I know that there's a lot of territory in between that. But the my ideal client is really the family or the divorced family that are what advisors would generally call the mass affluent. So a couple hundred grand in income, have some assets. It's the family that always says, rich enough to have something saved for college, but too rich to get aid. Right in that space. But moreover than that, I know a lot of advisors may focus on that or may have asset minimums. And over time, what I found is that income or asset minimums are actually not really the criteria for me. It's actually much more psychographic. So, um, being open minded about which schools they apply to, being open minded about different strategies. Like I do a lot of work with tax strategies with clients. So I'm not a CPA, but I use a lot of tax strategies to help
Mm.
families pay for college, either in part or in whole. But not everyone's open mind to that, right? So the family that is focused on, look, my kid has to go to Ivy League or their life is over, is really not a client for me. I mean, smart kid, great, awesome, but that's it's not really that way. Or if they say, 529s are the only way to save and that's it, and we're not considering other options, not really a client for me either. So I'm really looking for a segment of the population that fits sort of in that mass affluent ish
Mhm.
category from a financial standpoint, but also is open and willing to explore different ideas on how to, what colleges look for, how to save and pay, things like that. Because there's a lot of time, a lot of times when I mention tax strategies, they don't always go for it. They certainly may not understand it. But there are times also where I have clients intentionally borrow.
Mm.
You borrow, as a bridge of time, right? Because that's what debt is. It bridges time. So if you intentionally borrow for college so that something better can happen, let's say with their other investments or something, then in the
Mhm.
long run that might pay off. But there's people who are like, no, 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 I don't want to take on debt, right? They're morally opposed to debt, and that's fine. But the people who work best are the ones who are sort of open-minded about that stuff.
Mm. Now, the other thing I'd love to ask you about your niche in particular. So, I guess really quick, I assume that prior to getting really, really narrow, you were still a financial advisor, correct? You have years of working as a financial advisor, just kind of with a broader audience.
Right, exactly. I mean, I was the typical financial advisor for several years. And so the extent of my knowledge around college planning and college savings was, the college calculators that you find on investment firm websites,
Mm-hmm.
right? And of course, you hear the stories, college is really expensive, and you need X, Y, and Z. Um, when I had to really dig into this for myself is really when I started becoming more educated around how aid truly works
Mm-hmm.
at colleges, and how the formula truly works, and how it sort of overlaps with the tax code, and where it also diverges from the tax code, right? Those are very technical details. Uh, but but I can say that as part of what I do also is really just around helping families pick the right college. So I spend a lot of time just talking about, like, what even makes for a good college? What are the things you should be looking for? A lot about the student experience, and I relate it a lot to buying a house, right? Like, you might want a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house or something like that. Well, those exist just about everywhere, but you also have to look at the neighborhood and your commute time and the school district, and like there's all these other factors. And so when you pick for college, it's very similar. So I spend a lot of time talking about those things, because if it's not right and the kid ends up having to transfer, there's a financial cost to that,
Mm.
right? So even though it's not a traditional financial advisor function, if you will, right, it has an impact on family finances, and that's why I spend time talking about it.
Absolutely. Well, we talk about niching a lot on this podcast. And what I hear from a lot of advisors is that they're really hesitant to get too nitty gritty with their niche because they don't want to exclude, um, you know, everyone that they could potentially serve. So I would love to ask you, since you went really, really narrow, what kind of changes have you seen in your business and maybe the level of enjoyment you have working in your business? I mean, I don't think I'm wrong in saying that you're a person that has niched and has drank the Kool-Aid and is like, yes, this is good. This
Right.
is the way, right? So I would love to hear you talk about some of the benefits that you've actually seen in your firm since you've done that.
So I can share a little story with you. Excuse me. Prior to niching, so I was that advisor, and by the way, I didn't share with this, but in past professional life, I was a corporate trainer, but I also was a commercial banker for
Mm,
a number of years. So back then, I had the suits, the ties, the whole 9 yards. And when I transitioned to the financial advisor business, I recall going to a speed networking event,
mm,
however long ago it was. But I remember it. And the reason it stands out is because I was one of 8 or 9 financial advisors who happened to be at the event. Now, somewhere on that side of the table, somewhere on this side of the table. So I can't remember if I was the one moving or the other person. But the bottom line was, I ran to some other financial advisors, and we all said literally the same thing. Yeah, I really listen to the client goals and try to help the clients meet their objectives. Blah 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 blah. Right? Like Charlie Brown, blah 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 type of stuff. I'm like, you got to be kidding! This is terrible. And I recognized at that time, like, why would someone hire me versus
mm,
somebody else? And that all happened around the same time as kind of getting divorced and things like that. But I can say to everyone in the audience, right, if you don't have a niche, you're missing out.
mm,
I mean that 100%, because what has happened as I've gone deeper and deeper and deeper into this niche, um, it's made me an expert in the field. It's supported some of my other marketing, but now I'm the college guy, right? And I work with other advisors because I have this base of knowledge, and so my calendar fills quickly.
mm,
I don't chase prospects; they come to me, right? And a lot of people say, "Well, I only work on referral only." Like, yeah, I get that, but But when I say that prospects come to me, they come to me because I'm the expert, right? And that's also how I market. So whereas most other advisors, especially those who are maybe sort of starting out in mid-career, who are trying to chase down everybody they can talk to, right? The running joke, I know in the life insurance business, I think was like anybody who can fog a mirror, right? If you can fog a mirror, I want to talk to you. Um, I don't have that issue. So in fact, you can also tell by the calendar link that a lot of that most of us use. I know advisors where I can go onto their calendar link and still get an appointment same day, that later that day, right?
Mm-hmm.
That afternoon. You go onto my calendar. This is going to sound like conceited and really not trying to brag or anything, but you go onto my calendar, you can't get me for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And during my busy time, you can't get me for almost 4.
Wow.
Okay. Like, I'm not kidding.
Yes.
So it makes marketing and attracting clients so much easier when you have a clearly defined niche. Like, it's just the funniest part. I'll share this sort of opposite story. I was at a nonprofit fundraising dinner, and there was another advisor who I met there, and he reminded me that he and I had met before, and he knew some other friends, and so I'm striking up conversation. We're having a drink, waiting for dinner, and hey, what kind of clients do you focus on? I'm asking him. He's like, yeah, I do what you do. I do college planning. And every time I hear something like that, I always like to have a little bit of fun with this. Like, I'll test them a little bit. Okay, so like,
oh, you're that guy.
I'm like, hey, so what do you think about blah 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 blah? And you could just tell, like, he knows nothing, right? Like, his eyes are glassing over, things flying over his head. I'm like, okay, yeah, you don't, I didn't really say this to him, but I knew in the back of my head, he doesn't do college planning. But as a result of that, he then proceeds to tell me, oh no, I do a lot with Medicare too. And so basically in the like couple minute interaction I had with him, he basically said he does like college, Medicare, estate, retirement, charitable giving, invest, like anything you want to pick, right? That financial advisors say, like, he was an expert at it. Like, buddy, you don't know anything. I was going to swear, but that's probably not good on this podcast. But I'm like, you do not know anything, right? And so now I think about that kind of situation. People, yeah, he still has a share of clients, sure, but when people go to him, he's, as the saying goes, jack of all trades, master of none. So when you deal with people's money, you want to be an expert. You want to be good at it. You want to earn their trust, but you want them to trust you because they know you're really good at it, not just it's one of 50 other things that I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, before we hit the record button, we started having this really interesting conversation that I would love to dive into now, which is kind of how you see your marketing really changing. There's before COVID marketing, and then there's after COVID marketing. We'll call it BC and AC, right?
Right.
And so I would love to dive into that with you. And I would also love to know, had you made this this niche switch before COVID, or was this something that was kind of happening all around that same time?
No, so the niche definitely started before COVID.
Okay.
Well, by the way, one of the other benefits of being in a niche like this, so I actually visit 20 to 30 colleges a year, just because I go on the tours, so I hear what the parents hear, I hear what the questions are, because it ultimately helps me be better for my clients, sit through an information session. But then afterwards, I meet with the directors of admissions and financial aid to really get the behind the scenes details of how they really handle aid. So the benefit of that, okay, is I do not have, I got rid of like all my suits. I still have some sport coats. I still have my ties, but I got rid of the suits. But the benefit or downside of that is I do not have the wardrobe of a grown man. Like, I have so many college t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hey, they give me this stuff, right? Or I buy it. So like, I'm wearing a Texas shirt because this is actually my alma mater. I went to University of Texas.
Oh.
Even though I grew up in Massachusetts, but it's actually hard for me to get dressed without some sort of logo on it. Like every college I visit, there's something in my closet, right? So I get a lot of free clothing. It just doesn't. It's not what typical financial advisors wear because it's not the suit. I have a lot of hoodies and T-shirts with a lot of logos.
Love it.
So, so I don't, you know, right? So maybe your audience, maybe some of them think it's good, maybe not so much. But sort of BC and AC. So prior to COVID, I didn't really know anything about marketing, and I knew I had to get clients. I thought I would spend far more time on client work versus actual marketing because I'm thinking, hey, the people just come to me, right? Like, what's the problem, right? I'm sure, like most advisors. So I spent some time as a corporate trainer. So the way I marketed was I did it the only way I knew how, which was I delivered workshops, right? Anywhere and everywhere, community centers, libraries, whatever. And that's how I built my client base. And it would feed upon each other because I would, let's say, speak in one place, and then I would make a pitch for the second place. And I would say, well, if you really want to know how I did, because you know, this new place doesn't know me, go talk to place number one. And then the word started getting around and just build and build and build. And eventually it fell into the financial wellness world. So like the employee wellness programs inside companies, and part of employee wellness was financial wellness. So after a while, large companies in and around Boston would hire me to go speak to their employees, do lunch and learns. And by the way, I never had to pay for lunch, right? I just want to be clear, they bought the lunch. I just had to show up and speak.
If you have to buy the lunch, it's not a good opportunity.
Yeah. So, and I remember, and I still remember this because it was one morning, early morning, this one trade organization was, of like HR people and benefits people and stuff. And they asked me to be a speaker to their monthly meeting. But to talk about like financial wellness and stuff. Right. And so here's my opportunity to basically present what I do to all these HR people, benefits people. And that ended up being a lot of the companies that I ended up working for. And I remember at the time telling my friends, like, I will postpone my own funeral to make this meeting. Like, I'm going to be there. Okay. I don't care what it takes. I will be there. And so pre-COVID, I was speaking 40 to 45 times a week. Pretty much the only time I wasn't speaking was during the summer, and I would be one or two places every single week for the rest of the year. It's kind of how I got all my clients back then.
Wow.
COVID comes around. World's shutting down. Colleges are shutting down. People are losing their jobs. Nobody's going anywhere. So obviously in-person workshops are not happening. So I remember telling people, like, my job is going to be scrubbing toilets at the supermarket because supermarket employees are essential workers. I don't necessarily want to stock shelves. So you know what? I'll be the guy to scrub toilets. Fine with that. Right. Because I got nothing else. Right. Like that's, right. So fortunately that it didn't go that way. Thank goodness. So post COVID, I really want to focus more on content strategy. And so my marketing or things can live out there, because pre-COVID I was doing these workshops. I was getting a lot of people show up to these workshops, but I wasn't recording them, right? And the cell phone technology wasn't what it is today. So you either came to the workshop and I talked to you, or you didn't come and we never connected, right? Because you weren't there. So I was doing some webinars, and I actually tried my hand at writing. I want to try and get articles into like local newspapers, like little how-to articles or whatever outlet. But I found that while I feel like that I am capable of doing technical writing and I know how to spell and I know how to use proper grammar and things like that, it just wasn't in me. Like, it was a real labor to write a 500 or 750 word article. Like, I just, like, all the ideas were in my head. I just couldn't get it on paper. So I did that, and that came to a quick end. And then at the time, I was also on the board of my local community access TV station, and And because I was a member there, I could record a program. So I started doing a half an hour personal finance show. I created the set, and we also had a Zoom screen. We can Zoom in guests, whole 9 yards, write the intro, put on teleprompter. But I was so nervous. And I don't understand why, because, sitting there, I created the set. I knew what I was talking about, and I was just asking questions of a guest. I was so nervous. The funniest thing, this was an in-studio guest, a longtime friend who's a mortgage broker. She came in, I gave her the questions in advance. So she knew I'm like, look, I'm trying to make you look good here. So we were sitting in these chairs kind of facing each other at an angle. She was so nervous that I would ask her a question, right? Oh, can you tell us about X, Y, and Z? She was sitting stiff as a board. And she would say, yes, Jack, the answer to your question is. Now, behind her, there was a TV monitor, so I can see the camera shot at that time. Right?
Oh.
I knew the camera shot was on her. I had to turn away because I was going to burst out laughing. Like, I was like, oh man, like this is just hilarious.
And is this live, or is this,
Well, no, this is being recorded, but it's going to go, and we were doing most of these in one take.
Right.
So, it was going to, they edited on the intro, the outro, and that was it, right? It was going, you could see in the episode that eventually she relaxed and sat back and stuff.
Sure.
Like that. But when I was off camera, I was like this the whole time.
Oh, I can't look at you.
I can't look at you. It's just so funny. So, but I was really nervous. So that kind of came. So I landed on podcasting, and I shared this whole backstory because I didn't just pick podcasting out of the gate, right? Like I think some people do that. Like I figured out that I don't like to write. I'm wicked nervous on camera. And even though I know I'm on camera for podcasting, it's just a different vibe, different feel. And plus you only get me from sort of chest up. So I can tell you right now, I'm wearing shorts. Like, I don't post COVID. I do not put on pants unless I like you. and we're gonna see people in person. Like otherwise, forget it.
I almost was gonna ask you, does that you don't like me?
well, no, but we're not seeing each other in person live, right? So that, but that's just it. I mean, that like you have to be pretty special for me to actually put pants on, right? But again, this is so different because even today, go these like some of these networking in-person networking events, and you can always tell who the attorneys are and financial advisors are, right? Because they're the only people in suits, right? And not only do the advisors sound alike, they all look alike,
right?
I just like it's I think part of the niche or niche marketing and part of marketing, people talk about how you're dressed and how you present yourself, and I do believe that. But I think it also has to kind of reflect your personality, and it can help make a difference, right? Like I have all college stuff, and you're basically never going to see me in a suit at an event unless it's probably a wedding or a funeral.
I think that makes so much sense. And it makes sense for you to show up to client calls wearing different, college shirts or hoodies, depending time of year, because you are the college guy. That makes sense for your brand persona, right?
Right. Can I just tell you, just as a complete aside, so one of my favorite movies of all time is Animal House. Right. And there's a line during the movie, towards the end of the movie, where the fraternity, they're talking about like, we need something really stupid and futile on somebody's part. And then John Belushi says, we're just the guys to do it. I feel like that sometimes, like my personal life or sometimes in business, I'm the guy who's just out there doing something really stupid and futile. Right. And I guess the biggest thing is I'm just not afraid to look stupid because I don't care.
I love that, actually, because I think that's such an important part of content creation is like, you just have to put yourself out there, and the people who resonate with you are right. They're going to reach out to you and want to engage with you more. One other thing that I would love to go back to is, you really landed on podcasting as this is the most comfortable way for me to create content. You and I had talked about briefly before we hit record that, you were doing this local community access television show, and you were so nervous on camera. A lot of times on podcasts, you're on camera too. are you posting the video of your podcasts as well as the audio, or do you just post the audio?
Yep. So my podcast hasn't officially launched yet. I'm
Mm.
actually recording to and still banking episodes, but
Oh,
the plan is to both uh, post both the video and the audio, as well as take slices and for like social media shorts and stuff like that.
yeah.
Now, keep in mind for the shorts, there will be no dancing involved,
Oh,
right? Like, I'm sorry, I know it's very disappointing on behalf of your audience, but there will be no dancing involved.
well, this is really exciting. Do you have a launch date and a name for the podcast planned out yet, or is that still under wraps?
So the name I have, it's actually called Smart College Buyer, right?
Mm.
It's trying to help because college is a buying decision,
Mm-hmm.
right? We buy college. We don't think about it in terms of buying college, but we buy college no differently than we buy a house or a car.
Mm-hmm.
And I want families to make smart decisions. So I'm going to have guests on who focus on different aspects of the college process, both on the admission side as well as financial side. But also, I'm going to have episodes of just me sometimes talking about the financial side and actually really how the two sides really interact and affect each other.
Well, this sounds like a really great resource. So you'll have to let me know when it does go live so I can go back into the show notes and link to it because it sounds really exciting. Now, so you're doing the podcasting. You also show up on LinkedIn quite often, and you have quite an interesting LinkedIn strategy as well. I would love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So one of my what do you call it, AC after COVID strategies
Uh-huh.
is really getting press quotes. So I've made it an active part to respond to reporter and writer requests to get quoted in articles. So I've been in just about every major, so Forbes, Business Insider, Yahoo Finance, U.S. News World Reports, CBS News. I may have something coming from the Wall Street Journal. Um, I mean, take your pick outlet. I'm in there somewhere. Go Banking Rates a lot. They use me a lot
Mm.
as a personal finance site. Um, but I've really made that as part of my strategy. So I know that sometimes people talk about how they don't get clients directly from social media, and I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, and I don't think I've ever gotten a client directly from it. Although I've had clients say, "Oh, I've seen your stuff on LinkedIn."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. But again, there's never one post that says, "Oh, I saw this one post from Jack. I got to call him today."
Right.
Right? That like never happens, right? However, being active on LinkedIn and showcasing some knowledge and talking about different issues in college financial aid, I use LinkedIn really to connect to a lot of the writers,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they don't already know me. They'll often, because on LinkedIn you can see who looked at your profile and things like that. So what I often find is that I will submit some sort of pithy quote, and if they're really thinking about using me, I find that they'll then look at my profile on LinkedIn. And once I know that they look at my profile on LinkedIn, they see some of the things I post about the topic of financial aid or college admissions. So I would imagine that they then would say like, "Hey, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, right?" So I can
Yeah.
use him as a source. So so my LinkedIn strategy is partially about getting clients, but more to connect with other influencers, writers, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
which of course then expands my reach, right? So if I can get a writer to quote me, then whoever's reading their article is going to link back to me, and I that's really the strategy there.
And because you're so niched down as well, I imagine you are a really uh, highly sought out source to be quoted as well because you stand out from the crowd. So that's probably one reason why that strategy works so well for you.
Yeah, and I try to be creative in terms of also the quotes I'm giving.
Mm.
I especially from my corporate training days, it was a lot of improv comedy, right? Like you have to know your audience, things can change and stuff. And so, and I use a lot of analogies to explain things. And so, yes, I can say, I can give the standard quote about saving for college or whatever, right? That's probably compliance approved and every financial advisor says. But I rather say something a little bit more entertaining. That's still true and not going to,
Mm.
destroy me for compliance reasons. But it's just a little bit more entertaining because a lot of times you're getting just these one or two quotes in. So you can't write this whole paragraph with a whole another paragraph of disclaimers,
Right.
because they're not going to put that in the article.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, so there was a strategy to this. There is definitely an art to this that I think I've started to figure out,
Mm.
but obviously I'm sure I can still be better at it.
Do you have a particular article that comes to mind that you've been quoted in that maybe I could link to in the show notes that you're like, this is a great example of what I'm talking about?
Um, there are some. I'd have to go back and look
Okay.
because I did a count. And over the last, I think, year plus, I've been quoted or highlighted in, I think the last count was like 43 or 44 places.
Mm. Wow. Okay.
So
That's
there
great.
was a lot.
I would love if you could send me one or two so that people can go in and see, okay, this is kind of the strategy that Jack is going for. Because I really love this. It's realizing I don't want to spend all the time writing. It's not something that brings me joy. But I will be quoted by other writers and still
Right.
kind of get my name out there to these big audiences. Now, do you have anything that you can measure from that you've seen? Has anyone booked a call with you and said, oh, I saw you quoted in Business Insider or something?
Actually, yes. Believe it or
Wow.
not, I actually was quoted in a Forbes article, and the writer who in Forbes is actually a FinCon person. He and I have gotten to know each other really well. The reader actually reached out to his firm, but
Mm.
what I do isn't really what they do. They just sort of provide content. Um, and then because he uses me a lot, he then passed that referral to me.
Mm. Wow.
So, which I was obviously very appreciative of. But the other thing I do, again, in the old days, right, firms would have like brochures, and I don't mean like Form ADV, right? I mean like a marketing trifold
Mhm.
or a presentation packet or whatever. And I never did that. What I do with content is those are my brochures. So if I have a prospect, let's say, who's interested in a particular topic, and say, hey, can you send me a brochure? Can you send me information about this? I might just send them the link to an article or video or a podcast where I discuss that particular topic,
Mm.
right? And so these articles and these other pieces of content are my marketing brochures, if you will, right? But
Right.
it also builds the credibility. Wow, you were quoted in like CBS News, like, or whatever outlet you want to pick, right?
Right.
Like there's an aura of credibility there too,
Mm.
in addition to relaying that technical knowledge.
I mean, the clout that you get from that, I mean, that's just miles better than a, firm created brochure. I think that's really powerful. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm still the regular guy who wears like college hoodies and college t-shirts, right? So I don't walk around like, oh, I was quoted in X, Y, and Z. Like, yeah,
Right.
that's not me.
Yeah. No, I just love this whole kind of persona that is true to who you are, right? But you're a recognizable person. You do something that's really clear, and so I love everything that you're doing for your own branding, even if you feel like I'm just being myself. I think that's honestly the best kind of branding you can do.
It's it comes from not being afraid to look stupid,
Mm-hmm.
right? I
Which
mean, that sounds really silly, but it's um it just, yes, I can have disagreements with people, so I can't speak, or people may not necessarily agree with my philosophies and my approach. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But I know that, especially in niche marketing, I know that I'm not going to get everybody,
mm-hmm.
right? And I'm only the best. Excuse me. The best phrase I heard from another advisor who does niche marketing, but he operates in a very different niche than I do, is he wants 100% of the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that 1% is big enough for him to make a living. It's big enough for me to make a living. But actually, I will tell you this, Hillary. even though I'm very focused on what my niche is, I do still get people ask me, well, hey, I know you do this college thing, but do you also do retirement planning? Or, hey, I have an old 401k for my job. Can you help me with that?
Mm-hmm.
And so, by the way, and even operationally, I work with advisors not only within my own RI, the RIA I'm affiliated with, but also work with advisors at other firms. Because even though, yes, technically I'm licensed, I could do it, I can talk about retirement planning, all that, I actually don't want to. Right? I'd rather hand that off and maybe split the revenue, because I don't want to dilute the college expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I start doing this other stuff, then I become that guy who's like, oh yeah, I'm an expert in this and this and this and this and this, and I don't want to dilute that.
Yeah.
So I get those requests all the time. Hey, I have an old 401k. You can roll it over for me. Yes, let me bring in a colleague. That person will help you out. I'll still be part of it as a point of contact, but you really want to talk to that other person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very intentional thing.
Wow, that's really powerful. Do you find that clients are ever resistant to
that? Excuse me. Not usually, because the way I position it is very much like a medical practice.
Mm-hmm.
When you're sick, you want to go to an expert, right? Yes, we have our general our PCPs, general practitioners. They kind of oversee everything, but they recognize that when it's something outside their wheelhouse, they're going to refer the patient to an expert, right? And so that's all I do here is like, look, I'm an expert in this. I can talk to you basically about this, at the basic level about this other stuff. I'd rather bring in an expert to handle this for you. Nobody ever says no.
Right.
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 Now, they might not work together ultimately because they don't like the strategy or maybe the personalities don't match, but nobody ever says no, I don't want an expert. I like the guy who doesn't know what they're doing, please. Right? Like nobody ever says that.
Says that. Well, Jack, I could ask you question after question after question. This has been such a wonderful conversation, but in order to respect your time, I would love if we could just kind of wrap up by you telling our listeners where they can find you. I think people have so much to learn from you. And I mean, networking is networking, right? So if people want to learn more about you or they want to get in contact with you, where's the best place to reach you?
So probably the best way, believe it or not, is to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Wang. The RIA name is Innovative Advisory Group. But I think you can also look up Jack Wang Smart College Buyer. I think that's also in there. But that's actually the best way to connect with me. I always try and make sure I connect with other professionals there, because that allows them to see my content. I can see whatever they're posting and get a sense of who they are. And plus, all the contact information's in the LinkedIn profile way. So that really is the best way to do it.
Okay, great. I'll link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And Jack, just on behalf of my listeners and for myself, thank you so much for sharing your time. You had so many great nuggets and insights to share, and I just really, really appreciate it. So thank you for coming on and chatting with me.
No, thank you, Hillary. Appreciate being here.
Yeah. And thank you, of course, to all of our listeners for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.